WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and I have here this week, and not just because my 49th birthday is approaching this weekend, and the Bears are coming to town, and as well as our new kitty, Nyla, that we brought home and from the Be More Humane over the weekend, so we'll be talking more about her out on social media. But when the Ravens travel 3,000 miles out to the East Bay and beat a team that I think when we looked on the schedule at the beginning of the year and said that's going to be a tough one out in Oakland, we all feel pretty good about 3-2, and even better that the Pittsburgh Steelers stumbled at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was a delicious way to spend the early part of Sunday afternoon on the Red Zone. This guy watches the Red Zone and the NFL Zone and every other zone for sporting news. He does fantasy football as well as stories about Big Ben stinking against the Jaguars. We welcome one of our defending champions from Sporting News, Vinny Iyer, back onto the program. You can find Vinny out of the fighting city of Charlotte, where they're 4-1 right now, at Vinny Iyer. That's VINNIEIYER, as well as at sportingnews.com. Vinny, we're sideways here in Week 5. The Ravens are back in this thing. Who knew, huh?
Yeah, and who knew? And then you look at the Steelers struggling, the Bengals are being the Bengals, the Browns are the Browns. So this is what you get from a crazy Sunday.
All right, well, let's start with the craziest of crazy. Crazier that the Steelers lost the way they did at home, or crazier that the Ravens went across the country and won a game that, as I said, for 6 months, we kind of looked at that one as one of the real outliers, one of the real tough ones to win.
I think it was a bigger surprise about the Steelers for sure, because the Ravens did get a break with E.J. Manuel having to start. Who knows what the game would have been like if Derek Carr was in there, but it's a break that you take, and teams deal with injuries, and you don't feel sympathetic. The Ravens had plenty of games where they've been shorthanded. They didn't have Brandon Williams, so they'll take that victory any way you slice it to get right back in the thick of the AFC North. And with the Steelers, you just shake your head because they've been winning with defense. They came out to Baltimore and ran the ball very effectively, then they stopped running it, and they kind of just got lost there. Second straight weird game that they had that you look at the Chicago game, the Jacksonville game, you just scratch your head and what's wrong with the Steelers. They're pretty much a defensive team right now. There's not much going on behind Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and teams have started to realize that.
Well, I guess on top of all of this are the 5 picks, right? And, you know, if Flacco goes out and throws 5 picks, he's going to get crucified here. Roethlisberger also has some pelts on the wall up there in Pittsburgh. But Roethlisberger's a guy that talks about leaving the game and, has had a little bit of a whinier history with this thing. And certainly as he's getting older, all of the licks, all of the hits, all of the motorcycle accidents, all of the jurisprudence, and quite frankly, he's got a lot of money in the bank and not a whole lot left to prove. I think his Cooperstown Canton card has probably been punched at this point. I'm not sure of that, but this is a very disconcerting time for him, for Eli Manning, for the Cutlers and the Flaccos and any of these sort of mid-30-year-old guys that we're all watching them and wondering, well, is this the beginning of the end for them, right?
Well, I guess they can't all be those older guys, Aaron Rodgers and Alex Smith. There's nothing wrong with those guys from the 2005 draft. But, yeah, I mean, you wonder just with all the hits that Roethlisberger's taking, he just seems like a broken guy. Like his confidence is shaken. After the game on Sunday, he was just talking about, I might not be having it anymore. Maybe I've lost it. I'm not playing well. So when you start to talk like that as a quarterback, that's not a good sign because usually you're up front and say, we'll just go get him next week. But I think he just feels kind of helpless right now with this offense. And the Steelers have to get in gear if they're going to have any shot winnings because the Ravens, I know, look at that game from a couple weeks ago, it didn't look very good. But if the Ravens can get a few things more consistently on offense there to help just anything out there with to help their defense, I think this could be a close race here for sure. So, Pittsburgh offense, I think now that you see that Kansas City is coming in next, it's going to be hard for the Steelers to gear up here and get back on track.
He is. Vinny Iyer, he's out at Sporting News. He has inked a piece about Ben Roethlisberger, and as you wrote, maybe they need some more help around him. That offense was supposed to be special, though, right? I mean, this was the year they were going to be a record-setting Pittsburgh offense. They were going to run. They were going to slash. They were going to throw. Brown was going to get involved. All of these draft picks and the Martavis Bryants, even Sammy Coates, who's been since jettisoned, they were supposed to have some real elite things going on offensively, and we haven't seen that from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think Martavis Bryant has been just an absolute disappointment. He's just come back and just been a shell of what he used to be. Maybe he was a guy that was just thriving because of his size and speed. Really didn't learn the game, and he's away from the game for a while. And teams have kind of figured out that's all he kind of can do. And when you look at this, Juju Smith-Schuster, he wasn't supposed to play a big role as a rookie, but he's maybe their second best option now behind Antonio Brown. They get too funny with the way they treat their slot receivers and tight ends. Don't consistently trust people there either. And then you had Marcus Gilbert, one of the best offensive linemen in the entire league, being out for a few games. They've been able to survive that. And because of their defense and how well they played, they've been able to stay in games and win them. But in the long haul, you wonder how much they're sustainable in an offense-driven AFC in the end when it's going to be teams like the Chiefs, Patriots that rule this.
Vinny, I guess for the Ravens, we all feel good. We fly across the country, get a strip and a touchdown defensively early in the game, ran the ball well enough. Flacco played relatively flawlessly, but the offensive line gets all the credit in the world. I don't know what happens to the Raiders here. I have a great affinity for Jack Del Rio, as anybody here would tell you. I thought they were one of those teams that was in line for 11, 12 wins this year. Now playing with a backup quarterback. Defense looks like it's gotten no better. Offensive line didn't have the push. Marshawn Lynch looks washed up, quite frankly. And Amari Cooper, as much as we beat on Brashad Perryman around here, he has been an invisible guy out there in that offense. Now they're playing backup quarterback. The Raiders are really playing from a defensive mode here the rest of the way, and they have a tougher schedule as the season unfolds.
Yeah, and this is why Derek Carr knows that so much is on him, and we know that from last season, that so much is on him to lead this team. This defense can play at only a certain level. I mean, they've got one big stud there in Khalil Mack, but a lot of other question marks there. So they know how much Carr means to this team. He's pretty much everything, and without Amari Cooper, pretty much you're down to Michael Crabtree as the only thing that teams are scared about. And I think people are realizing that you don't have to fear Cooper. He's struggling. He's in a bad slump. It doesn't matter who he's faced in coverage this year. So if you realize that and say, okay, we can maybe focus and contain Crabtree, maybe know that Jared Cook can kind of contain him as well, then there's not much there. You wonder where they're going to get their sources of this explosive offense that we saw for most of last year. And then I think Marshawn Lynch is fine, but he's more Latavius Murray from last year. He needs to be in position to score points in the red zone, and the passing game needs to really help him to open things up. And that hasn't happened at all for the Raiders, even with Carr in there.
Dude, there are a couple of teams here that have counted to 3 when I wasn't sure they were going to count to 4 or 5 all year. I mean, let's go through these teams. The Bills, the Jets, obviously over in the NFC, the fact that the Eagles have been this good, the fact that the Rams have kind of come to life despite losing a tough game. I mean, there are some teams that we had sort of written off for dead that have played pretty good football here so far. I mean, I guess it really all gets led by the Jets and the Bills because that division has never looked like this because the Patriots have been so good all century.
Yeah, and it's funny. And then the Dolphins haven't really played well at all. They're still hanging around there, doing their best, even with no offense. So, yeah, if you told me this is how the AFC East would look going into Week 6, I would be just shocked to find that out. And the Bills, I think, came down to earth a little bit. The Bengals game on Sunday, and then you look at the Jets, they're hanging in there defensively. They're doing some little things right offensively. They're not a total wash, and I think we can totally throw their tanking notion out the window. You see them playing hard out there and with pride, and that's all you want to see from most of these teams that may be shorthanded personnel-wise, maybe don't have the best schemes, don't have the most creativity, but you just want to see those guys playing hard and fast. And sometimes in this league, having 53 guys to play that way in a single week in a toss-up game that's all you need, and that's what we've seen from the Bills and Jets so far with good coaching.
He is Vinny Iyer. You can find him out on Twitter at Vinny Iyer. That's VINNIEIYER. He's also the NFL and fantasy football writer for Sporting News and SportingNews.com. You can follow him out there. And then there are the good teams, or the perceived good teams, like Pittsburgh that lost at home. There's a lot of that going on. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh lost at home. Oakland lost at home. Rams lost at home to a Seattle team that's starting to play some defense here all of a sudden. And then there's the Green Bay-Dallas game that we knew was going to be a dogfight, but on the back end of that, Dallas goes below 500 now, and Green Bay has emerged as something of a power in the NFC, back from wherever they were last year, where they didn't run the ball well and didn't play defense all that well, have some of those similar problems, but the record's not a problem right now, and certainly Aaron Rodgers, down a touchdown with a minute left to go in the game, he's going to win that football game for you, even on the road.
Yeah, you just have to look around the league, and you pretty much have to have that guy in your pocket or moving out of the pocket, throwing on the run to be successful. I think that's the theme. A lot of these teams that have emerged, Philadelphia is a good example. I mean, Carolina, you get that as well. They're get a good matchup coming up in Week 6, and you look at the same thing goes around. You move these guys around, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott. It doesn't matter. Then Aaron Rodgers, he was the oldie but goodie, the original who did this, moving around and throwing, and you saw some of those shades from Alex Smith as well, moving around, throwing lasers downfield at their age. It's pretty impressive. And Rodgers is just, I think he almost wants to be trailing with the ball in his hands late in games. I think he loves that. He loves being doubted and challenged.
Elway loved that, right? Elway just, I'll stay down by 10 points until the fourth quarter, and then we'll get it interesting around here, and I'll write. I mean, there are certain guys that sort of have that appeal to them, and, Brady hasn't had to come back and win a million games. I mean, he has in the playoffs and stuff, but on a week-by-week basis, the Packers' defense has been bad enough, throughout all these eras, even the Brett Favre era, quite frankly, where this gunslinger fourth-quarter mentality, that lives amongst Packer fans, right? They're used to it.
Yeah, the first part of Aaron Rodgers' career, everyone was saying, where are the fourth quarter comebacks? Because the Packers are a pretty good, complete team, and they were playing from ahead, and he didn't have to lead any comebacks. But now, you've seen the past few years, as things that's piled on, the defense still struggled, and there's more offensive injuries around him that now you really appreciate it, truly appreciate him, that where they would be without him is just insane. They probably are a 2 or 3 win team. I think they are really not that good in several areas, but when you throw him in there, that suddenly they can be a 13, 14 win team. So when you look at MVP, I know Matt Ryan had a spike last year. Alex Smith could be the guy this year, but when you're looking at a guy that's really most valuable, carrying his team week in and week out, it's Aaron Rodgers in this league. There's no doubt about it.
He is Vinny Iyer. You can follow him around at Sporting News. And we're getting ready here this week for the Chicago Bears. And we're playing a little bit of that NFC North here this year. We got all that stuff coming up. Last thing for you, injuries through the league and how bad the Giants appear to be at this point. And they say McAdoo's not in trouble. I tell you, Eli Manning certainly looks like he's in trouble at this point. And then the loss of T.J. Watt in Houston, or excuse me, J.J. Watt in Houston. So some thoughts about losing these players at this point in the year. It's such a star-driven league, and we had it with Flacco a couple of years ago. It takes morale into the dumper when these injuries happen, man. Vinny?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we lost you, man. Thoughts about Odell Beckham and thoughts about J.J. Watt and the loss of them?
Yes. When you look at Odell Beckham, I think the Giants' lost season is just, I think it's just a capper at this point. They're 0-5. They're not going anywhere. They might as well hope that Odell Beckham Jr. can come back stronger next year. Then you look at J.J. Watt. I mean, at least they have a stud there in Deshaun Watson, who's dealing like crazy. He's giving them a chance in every game. J.J. Watt, as big of a loss he was a loss last year. They were able to sneak in the playoffs with a bad quarterback situation. Now with Watson there, you figure that they're going to have a shot in every game if they can win a few shootouts. And I think with Watson, they have the potential to do that. And then the Giants, you might as well just shut it down right now. If Roger Lewis Jr. is going to be her top wide receiver going forward, it's not your season at all.
Well, the Giants are out of it, but the Eagles certainly look like they've moved into the driver's seat here. They've got a kid playing great football right now. They're playing some defense. They are sort of the team in the NFC, I think, with a little bullet next to them to say they're better than we thought they were.
Definitely. I mean, you look at the Eagles up front, they're as good as anyone, and they've held the fort here without Fletcher Cox early. We'll get Ronald Darby, presumably, to help that secondary, the one weak spot of this team. But overall, Carson Wentz, going through his progressions, finding his wide receivers, finding his tight ends, getting more of a running game there to help him. Everything is falling in place for Carson Wentz. And I think the Eagles are a legitimate leader in this NFC East, and I think it'll be fun to see those two Cowboys games this year with him and Prescott going at it.
Yeah, seeing Aguilar, who was a guy we looked at a couple years ago to draft, start to emerge a little bit. We're waiting on Brashad Perryman around here, and I know they're waiting on Amari Cooper out in Oakland. These wide receivers are tough to wait on. Vinny, we're going to be following you out at Sporting News as well as out on Twitter. Always great to visit with you. Keep the faith down there in Charlotte. They're playing some good football down there, despite the quarterback having his foot back in his mouth again, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's what the quarterback does best is just play. And when he plays and doesn't say anything, that's usually when good things happen.
Just put a tie and a hat on and say nice things and smile. Maybe he'll get his yoga commercial back. Be good, Vinny. We'll see you soon.
All right, thanks.
You got it, Vinny Iyer down there in Charlotte, North Carolina, and, of course, out at Sporting News as well as at Vinny Iyer on Twitter. You can find me out at the BuyAToyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. Big doings around here this week. We have a new beautiful cat in our lives. I want to thank our friends at Be More Humane for that out on Nicodemus Road. If you have not rescued an animal, give it a shot if you want an animal in your life. We have number 2 right now, lovely Nayla, who is going to be living with us hopefully for the next 20 years or so. So she's in the other room. My birthday this week. Big thanks for everybody on the birthday wishes. And, of course, I go into the Dundalk High Hall of Fame next Friday. So next Friday will be an homage to all things Golden Domes of Dundalk as I enter the only Hall of Fame that I'm ever going to enter in my life. And it's on Delvale Avenue. I still haven't been into the new high school, so I'm excited about that. So any of my old owls out there giving a hoot, come on out next Friday. We're going to have an all-day drinking, eating, crabbing, pizzaing, cheesesteaking, doing all the things I did in Dundalk all during my formative years that made me the man I am today. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. If you need breaking news, all of that comes first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis is going to be here on Thursday. He'll drive you home 3 to 5. A much happier version of Dennis Colazzos when the Ravens go out to Oakland and win as we get ready for the Bears on my birthday weekend this weekend. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. If you want to see pictures of our beautiful new cat, you can find her out there. You can also find us anywhere the internet travels. Facebook Live and YouTube. We do stream. And, of course, much like Mr. Angelos here in the offseason, I am a very available individual. Nasty at WNST.net for praise and criticism, although I do appreciate the praise. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.